Hello and welcome to Just Onside. It's Monday, the day after the massive game. Obviously, we have to shoot. We weren't going to shoot, but we have to shoot definitely now. So, OS, firstly, how are you? And then we'll talk about what happened yesterday.
I'm doing good, Ayub. Monday out of the way. I did choose to work from home today. Make of that what you will. But
Rightly so.
yes, but I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm really good. Really good weekend. Obviously, for me, Leeds won, and then the Spurs result. We'll talk about that later on, but let's focus. Let's go straight into the game yesterday. Cracking game, really enjoyable game. Uh, And I think Arsenal really were a surprise to me. I expected them to be a little bit more conservative, but they were fantastic. Very unlucky, I would say. Great game, great advert for the Premier League. And it really sets up this Premier League beautifully. So, talk about the game, talk about your emotions, and talk about where you are as an Arsenal fan. Are you excited? Are you anticipating that the league is gone? So, go on, take it away.
Yeah, you. I mean, firstly, just in terms of the emotions of it all, I can't remember a game in which the emotions felt as heightened as much as this one in terms of supporting as an Arsenal fan. Not saying I've always been this kind of avid Arsenal supporter. Of course, they've played bigger games, Champions League finals against Barcelona and what have you. But in recent times, especially in terms of going for the league and maybe even other games when Arsenal have played in years gone by, famous battles at United, you can't remember them being this type of kind of crescendo with a few games to go, with so much riding on it, so to speak. So this felt like the most important game that I've experienced as an Arsenal fan, at least in recent memory, without a shadow of doubt. And it felt like that it lived up to that type of billing as well. I think that was the concern by most people in terms of, okay, what type of Arsenal are going to turn up? Because you knew that City would pour it on. But the question was going to be, okay, which Arsenal are going to turn up? Because they have shown in different form recently, not
Hmm.
the stuff of champions. But firstly, just on the game itself, Ayub, it was an incredible game. I think the drama, the anxiety, the stress, both teams were feeling it at times, which is what you want in some ways. You want some drama, you want the kind of nervous emotion that there should be with so much riding on it. And you saw that palpably from both sides on the dugout, on the pitch, in the ground. You could see many a supporter biting a fingernail and what have you. And this was only 5 minutes in, so it was everything that you want sport to be. Firstly, forget the game in terms of the wins, the events, the incidents. This is what sport should be: a competition at its finest, drama, the TVs, the cameras, everybody shows up, the commentary, all of that. I think if you listen to the commentary, at least that we had, maybe I'm not sure if it's the same commentary. I know it's not the same commentary that Sky Sports had. But when Donnarumma makes a mistake, it just feels there's a certain magnitude with which the commentators going crazy and what have you. So yeah, first in terms of the game, I think both teams deserve and both managers deserve immense credit for serving up what was a thriller. It wasn't necessarily a
Hmm.
4-3 or anything like that, but it felt a thrilling game, a captivating game. A Yub, 60 minutes in, you're thinking, which way is this going to go? Arsenal had the better of it in that period. Not necessarily immediately after the half time. Actually, City, I thought, were good in that first 10 minutes, but then Arsenal had a really exciting kind of 5 minutes where you felt, if they could have got ahead of you, who knows, maybe they at least secure a draw. They came agonizingly close, obviously, with the one chance that they put together on the counter, as well as obviously that incredible strike from Eze, especially when you see how far out it actually was in terms of how far that ball came in terms of curling onto the post. It probably would have been the goal of the season in terms of just what that type of moment would have meant, especially from an Arsenal perspective. But yeah, incredible performance, I think, from both sets of players. And I think they deserve immense credit, I think, for serving up what was a thriller from an Arsenal perspective. At you, look, I think I don't want to really talk too much about deserve because these games they don't really come down to whether you deserve or not. It's not so much about the performance. The performance will probably dictate the result, but it's margins and moments. And the margins and moments fell on City's side. Look, they hit the woodwork twice early on from that deflection when they hit Gabriel's upper arm. And then even Haaland in the second half from the corner set piece where he hit the outside of the post. Arsenal hit the post twice through Gabriel and obviously agonizingly close with that wonderful Eze strike. But it's margins and moments, and that big opportunity that they had at
Mm.
1-1, especially when they went through on goal. You're thinking, I mean, the way the move developed, you're thinking this is going to end up with a strike on goal. And as Havertz, unfortunately, slightly stretching for it, he gives the impetus away to a behemoth in terms of Donnarumma when he's that close and he's stretching. If he wasn't stretching, I think he scores, but I think just the fact he was a bit on the stretch. And at that moment, as an Arsenal fan, you're thinking, this feels critical because City, the one thing I do admire about City is that they will keep going. They will create. They don't have halves where they go without creating good opportunities because they have incredible footballers. We spoke about one of the best footballers right now on form, Shirky. He put his imprint with a wonderful solo goal. It was an interesting discussion this morning about how they were saying about him that he has this kind of Messi-esque type qualities to him. But you obviously don't want to go to that Messi comparison because he's one of one, and I think that's fair. But he definitely has that kind of Hazard type movement and
Mm.
arrogance about him,
Yeah.
and I think that's perhaps a slightly more favourable
Mm.
comparison. There's an arrogance. Hazard had that arrogance. I love this celebration. Yes, from an Arsenal perspective, you don't want to see it, but he just stands there, aka a bit like Cantona-esque, so to speak. You know, he just it's taking in all of the
Mm.
plaudits and all of the acclaim in that kind of gladiatorial arena. It felt seismic to me anyway, especially in terms of the goal itself. But look, Arsenal got themselves straight back into it, and they looked threatening. And I think this wasn't the kind of game. I think it's pretty clear that Arsenal did turn up. It wasn't a case of the occasion was too big for them. The disappointment will be last week, where I felt like for some reason that occasion was a bit too big for them. For whatever reason, they couldn't get themselves up. You can't say that a team that can perform like they did yesterday would be anemic at home to Bournemouth. Yet these are the same team, a week apart essentially. What I would say is a slight difference this time around, you, but I don't know if you agree, is especially from the final where they didn't have Odegaard and Eze, but they had a lot more technical security, and I think that clearly showed, especially in terms of getting out of dangerous situations, being able to hold on to the ball. Eze, you saw him very kind of luxury type player, but really coming to the fore. He had some tricky moments as well where he lost the ball, but he used class for large parts of it as well in terms of getting them out of trouble. But yeah, big situations, big moments, great goal from Haaland in terms of wrestling with Gabriel and getting the goal. And then Ayub, we had Andy Townsend on commentary over here, co-commentary, and he said with about 80 minutes on the clock that Arsenal will create one opportunity. They will. And you could sense it wasn't just a cliche he was throwing out there.
Mm.
Even I sense that they'll get something. They'll get a situation. And a situation came. And I think on these, it's how sports should be.
Mm.
This is what drama should be like, because you think about what the opposite could have happened where the cross comes in, Havertz, relatively free header in between the centre backs. He kind of sees it all the way, no real pace. He just needs to probably get it on target into one of the corners or near to the corner, and it's probably a goal. And you just wonder if it goes the other way. Can you imagine the pandemonium, the celebrations? You saw Arteta on the floor the same way I spoke about how I was pleased to see Daniel Farke the other day at Old Trafford on his knees in jubilation, in celebration for their first win at Old Trafford in 46 years. You felt for Arteta in that moment because all those years of finishing second encapsulated perhaps in one moment where he's absolutely on the floor, crestfallen, giving it everything. So it could have been so different. It could have been
Mm.
absolutely so different, and that could have been a sporting moment that Arsenal fans would have remembered for a lifetime. The famous Overmars goal, the Will Todd goal. It would have now been the Havertz goal
Mm.
at the Etihad to rescue a draw, taking them on their way to a potential Premier League title, first one in 22 years. So yeah, look, the game was incredible. I'm not going to talk too much about, like I said, from a deserved perspective, because these games, you have to find a way. Moral victories and all victories at this stage of the season. So look, did Arsenal compete? Of course, I've always had them as a good team. I was surprised at how well actually they did compete off the back of what was very stodgy form of Ayub. but there's a lot to like there as well. And there's still a lot to play for. What I would say is one small point. As much as I think City were very good, and I think in the end you've got to give credit and doff your cap to them. These are two. It felt befitting Ayub of the stakes, representative of the stakes that were there. I think I didn't feel there was a big difference between the two teams. It didn't feel vastly, in terms of, they didn't feel vastly superior to me. I thought Arsenal had good moments, very good moments. But in the end, ultimately, you've got to take advantage of the situations that you create. You're not going to get many at City, and Arsenal probably had enough to score at least more than one. So credit to Man City, credit to Pep Guardiola. One small thing I would say though is if Arsenal can play like that with as much concentration and as focus and face the kind of scrutiny and the level that yesterday was in terms of the build up and the occasion, which I thought they dealt with pretty well for the most part, given that they've been playing every 3 4 days. I think if they can add Timber and Saka instead of Mosquera and Madueke, it to the Champions League final, whereas I was a bit more skeptical about those chances previously. So yeah, look, incredible game first and foremost. Ayub, felt in somewhat a privilege to be a part of it in terms of having so much invested in it because you want to be part of these games in April and May. But yeah, credit to Man City and well, congratulations to them either. Yeah,
Yeah, well said. Well said. I don't know how you cope because obviously my nerves are always shredded to if I was an Arsenal fan. And the way that I am, there's no way I could have watched that game. That would have just been too much. But it was a wonderful game. I talked about it being a wonderful advert for the Premier League,
yeah,
and it was. It was a fantastic game. And credit to Arsenal because I think there has also been question marks about their bottle and their ability to cope with pressure. I think they coped with it sort of magnificently. On another day, it could have been Arsenal the victors. And it had everything. It was a game which it had the mistakes. Araya could have gifted Haaland a goal at the start, and then sort of conversely, it happened to be the Man City keeper who sort of made a dog's dinner of that. But it added to the excitement, the drama, sort of hitting the woodwork. The battle. I mean, to me, the standout really was the battle between Gabriel and Haaland. That was old school football. That just was magnificent. It really was a battle of strengths, character, commitment, everything that you want to see in English football. It was there. It was demonstrated ably, and also. That incident where he's headbutted, or at least, it's not a violent headbutt, but in modern game, if Haaland goes down, it's sending off. So again, I'm not sure whether Haaland has done that intentionally to try and keep Gabriel on, or he's just not realised, he's just not reacted. He's because obviously that many players these days you can just
yeah.
brush them, and they'll go down like a sack of spuds. So credit to Haaland. I mean, Haaland did mention in the post-match interview that that he was conscious of that. I'm not sure whether it was whether with hindsight he probably would have thought, oh, hang on, I should have gone down. But great game. For a neutral, it would have been absolutely magnificent. And as I said, I watched the game, and obviously, it sort of pains me to say it as you're a good dear friend of mine, but obviously, I wanted Man City to win the game, so I had a vested interest in that game. So I was nervous as hell, and it's about moments. It's about moments. I don't. I think Arsenal did everything they possibly could do. It wasn't a case they froze. Maybe that chance at the end, Havertz. It's one where maybe sort of 7 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, he scores, and it's maybe it could be decisive. And I want to ask you about the next 5 games because both teams
Mm.
obviously have 5 games or 6 games for Man City. What do you think? Do you think Arsenal will win every single game?
It's a tough one, you because I don't think you want to approach it like that. If you look at some of the games where Arsenal have dropped points in, and they've dropped in many games recently, it's been in many different ways, and that's probably the disappointing thing. Yesterday, they acquitted themselves well, but against Man City or against a very good team, you may lose to a moment of brilliance or something that happens that's unlucky because you're not gonna. The teams are fairly well balanced, so I'm not sure if they are going to win every game, and ultimately this is the challenge that befalls the manager in terms of how he can lift his troops. Can they put a little bit more stock into the performance compared to the result? You saw Declan Rice mouthing to Martin Odegaard saying, "Hey, it's not done yet," and you want to see a little bit of that. I was a little bit.
Mm.
It's as consistent as it comes from Roy Keane, and it's a little bit tiring as well. But I am a little bit tired of this kind of narrative that doesn't make any sense when there's talk about, well, Micah Richards and Gary Neville. Also, you're talking about how, to your point, are you okay? How does this take them into the next 5 games? And I think it does make a difference. If they had got walloped 5-0 yesterday, nobody's going to sit here suggesting as though, well, we're going to reel off 5 wins in a row and we'll see where that takes us. No, that would have been stupid, because the mental fragility and the kind of mental damage that a defeat like that would have made it very difficult to then foresee rolling off of 5 wins. And Roy often talks about this as though it's binary. Well, there's only one team that could have won yesterday. Now, yeah, a draw would have been lovely, but Arsenal went for it in a more organized fashion. They weren't kamikaze. But they went for it. They knew that their best chance was to press high, go 1-for-1 at the back. You saw obviously in a great battle between an incredible striker and a really good defender. So I think these things are not binary. Often that means you may lose these games, and you have to risk defeat in the chase and the pursuit of glory. And I think that's how I want my team to be to some extent. So I don't think I can be too critical of Arsenal yesterday. I actually finished the game. The disappointment was real. Let me be very, very clear. More disappointed than I've ever been. But I spoke to a few Arsenal fans last night, and they were the same as I was, which was, well, proud of the effort. Your team goes for it. They're unlucky. It's not as if they were scared. They put a good account of themselves. Again, no divine right to win these games. It's not as simple as, well, you've got to win these games. You've got to win this. Yeah, okay, fine. We all want our teams to win the biggest games. But the next best thing you ask for is that your team acquits itself fairly well. And I don't think any Arsenal fan could genuinely, hand on heart, say that they didn't acquit themselves well. It's not easy going to the home of the best team for the last decade, pretty much, into a Pep Guardiola house when they're motoring along and had a week to rest, in form, firing, got arguably the best striker in Europe, and think that we've just got a divine right to turn up and win. It doesn't work that way. So, yeah, look, I think they have got a great chance. Like I said, I finished that game at you, truthfully, knowing that the title's now a 50-50 shot, because I think they will beat Burnley and beat Burnley convincingly, because that then levels things up in terms of, right, same games played, you know where you stand. If they get a narrow win at Burnley, you might think, okay, cool, even Stevens, it's in your hands. If they paced Burnley, then you'll feel like you're on the back foot, because City are a more offensively, let's say, better team, I would say, than Arsenal. But, like, you've still got games to play. Like I said, my overriding emotion yesterday was they need 5 more performances like that. If they have 5 more performances like that, they'll go a long way. Argument could be that if they play Eze and Odegaard for most of those games, they'll have a bit more technical security, and they'll have a bit more kind of nous in terms of final third. That's what you'd need from those two players. But again, I had one eye on the Champions League, whereas before I felt we were probably the fourth best team. I saw a team that could maybe even compete with the 2 other monsters on the other side. And what I mean by compete is not, whereas before I felt like they'll lose, there's just no chance. I saw a team that could acquit themselves, that could make it somewhat of a worthy final if they get there. And that I hadn't felt like that in recent times. So look, there's still a lot to play for you. Again, I go back to it when I see Arteta on the touchline, the way he was crestfallen. There was a sadness, but there was also a bit of a smile on your face, because you want your manager feeling the way he felt. This is what sports drama moments should be about, sport at its finest. So yeah, look, I think they've got all to play for. City are favourites. I think that's fair to say. I know some odds as though both teams will still drop points, and Arsenal actually favourites in some books. But you'd fancy City to reel this off, because they are a damn good team offensively. And I think that should be enough to see many of their opponents away. Yes, they've got to go away to Everton. Yes, they've got to go away to Bournemouth. I even have the home game at Villa one final day of the week. That could be interesting. Arsenal have got a tough game at Newcastle. But look, all to play for. It's a tough result for Arsenal to take. The way I would look at it is, again, I'd still be saying to the team, you win 5 games, good chance you'll win the league. And I think that's the approach that they have to take. So, yeah, look, incredible game with you. Just want to get your thoughts very quickly on the incident between, you touched on it, Gabriel and Haaland. Uh, when that happened, when they squared up to one another, and you obviously saw the motioning forward of Gabriel's head, what was going through your mind? You're obviously watching it, you're engrossed in it. It's an incredible game up to that point. What was your overriding emotion when that happened?
He's off. I mean, it, 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 it was one where sort of modern football, what sort of constitutes. Well, I say you know what constitutes a red card, but in the modern game, that is 100% sending off. So I just thought when I saw that he's off, so I was astonished. And it just was. I don't even think it was more to do with Holland's reaction. If it had gone down, definitely would have been sent off. There would have been no issue. I think even without going down, I think that's an incident that I think when they look at VAR, so to have both the players yellow carded for that, I thought that was, in all honesty, a travesty. I mean, it was great for the game because I suppose it sort of a sending off would have just guaranteed that it was always going to be sort of City was going to win that game after, if it was a sending off. But to me, this is where my problem is. Have consistency. That in any other game that would have been a sending
Yeah.
off. In that game that should have been a sending off. I think Gabriel sort of dodged the bullet. I think if there's anything when I mean, I'm not sure whether they sort of review decisions and whether he can sort of retrospectively sort of get a red card. I mean, I'm not sure whether that's going to be the case, but really, that to me is it's a clear cut red card. End of.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on your latter point, I don't think they can. And it would be pretty stupid to do so because it's not as though they've missed something. I mean, if can you imagine? He motions forward. A referee doesn't want to get too involved. VAR says yellow's probably fine, and then suddenly the PGMOL intervenes and says, "No, both of you missed a violent conduct act right in front of millions of cameras." I don't see it. No, no, I don't think so. Listen, I think what you're saying there is something. I think you're hinting at it. Tell me if I've misread your point. I'm glad it wasn't a red card. Not just because I'm biased, and I am biased in this particular instance, but I've been fairly consistent on this. I even remember when Rodri had his hands wrapped around Morgan Gibbs White. You'll remember we spoke about it a couple of years ago. It's interesting they spoke about it, suggesting a lot of commentary about it today, as though if Haaland goes down, it's a red card. But it's very interesting because we miss a point before that, which is, did Haaland have a reason to go down? Now, you're right. In the modern day game, you're absolutely right. Let's be very clear. If Haaland is that type of player, and it might have something to do in the city where he was born, but if he was that type of player, he
Yeah.
he could have gone down. And we know there's many a player like that where there's no touch, and it's become so accepted in the modern day game that we bypass the point whether the player should go down with a passing comment of, "Oh, well, he's made a meal of it, but he's made a meal of it, but uh, Gabriel's been stupid." I still think, did he have a reason to go down? No, and that's the reason why he didn't go down, because he didn't have a reason to go down. And he said afterwards, "That's how my father raised me. You don't go down." I just think he's made of different stuff. He likes the battle. He doesn't want to deal in that type of cheating antics. Um, was it violent conduct? No. So for me, it's not a red card. Yes, in the modern day game, yes. I know it is, but that's because the game has been sanitized to that extent. So I think I agree why they didn't send him off. They didn't because it felt that type of game. You're right. They didn't want to intervene in a game where they felt it's two big teams. It's not always been the way, by the way. And I'm not even saying it's right. You're right. Consistent. I mean, Arsenal City at the Etihad is just as important as Leeds Wolves on Saturday from a Leeds perspective. So I understand it. I don't want to suggest as though, well, because this is the super duper game with millions of people watching, we should referee this differently. But I think we all accept that in the running of the game itself, in the battle, in the heat of the battle, two amazing footballers going at it, and they're giving you hammer and tongue, and they're both fighting for their football teams, trying to get on top of one another, all the rest of it. If you can, try and keep it 11 against 11, unless something super clear happens. And I'm just glad it wasn't, because for me, it's just not violent conduct. The same way Martinez against Calvert-Lewin wasn't violent conduct, and we have to start guarding against that. But look, Uh, Incredible game, final word. It felt like I said a joy and a privilege in a sense to be part of it. It was the most intense game that
Hmm.
I think, supported Arsenal through in terms of the 95, 97, 98 minutes or however long it was. It felt big every minute. You felt like, come on, can we create a situation, stay in? It's very difficult to watch those games, but you have to somehow enjoy the fact that you're part of those conversations. Um, who knows if they get to a Champions League final? That one may well supersede this one. So it's just interesting. But look, incredible game, befitting, like I said, of the stakes of the game itself. I thought incredible entertainment. I can imagine a lot of the neutrals really thoroughly enjoyed the drama on show. And like I said, I go back to that 92nd minute or whatever it was, or 89th minute when Havertz, as the cross is coming in, you can see it's going to be on his head. It could have been also different,
Hmm.
you imagine. So anyway, that is how it falls. Incredible. But let's see what the remaining games will bring.
That's pretty good of you. I mean, sort of obviously we're chalk and cheese because I wouldn't have been able to react the way that you've reacted. I in fact I wouldn't have been shooting today if I was an Arsenal fan. And just on the point of violent conduct, I think it was violent conduct because the only reason where perhaps it wasn't really because uh Haaland's sort of almost ridden the downward movement or the movement of Gabriel. He's sort of almost ridden that. That's the reason why. If he just stands perfectly still, there's a little bit of damage there. Completely in contrast to the little tug from from
If
Martinez. So I think
if there was a distance between Gabriel's head and Erling Haaland's head, then you're right. He would have done some damage for sure. The fact that their heads were together and he simply motioned it forward, feel free to bring me the video evidence of somebody who's done damage to their nose in that particular situation. So yeah, good luck finding that one. Yeah.
all right, okay, but you're right. It's a cracking game. It really was thoroughly enjoyable, and it sets it up because I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I still think maybe there could be a twist. I've got a feeling though that both teams are going to win all their remaining games, and you alluded to it, Burnley. That probably is the game that will define where the championship goes because I've got a feeling that they'll be absolutely smashed the goal difference because I think that's the way that Guardiola is going to approach that game. Right, this is where we need to 6-7. Burnley have just imploded. I think they've resigned themselves to the fact that they're going
Yeah.
down. So it could be a game where City go in with the intention of scoring a hatful of goals, and that just could turn it in their favour.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going to that, I've been alluding to it for the longest time about the approach. I think the goal difference is going to impact the approach that both these teams come. And here we are. That's where we're at
Mm,
game week 33, 34, exactly where I thought we would be. Do I think both teams may well end up on the same points? I don't. I think something somewhere is going to go awry. But in the meantime, this is now going to become part of the conversation for these teams. Now, I think it shouldn't take front and center. What it should be is that the focus is to win a game of football. Now, if we find ourselves in a position where we're 1-0 up and the other team's down to 10 men, right, let's not just pass it around as though we're just going to
mm.
control the game. Let's go for the jugular because all of these goals mean something. So, yeah, I think it's going to start to seep in or influence games, especially when you feel like the game is won. Which you think City may well find themselves in that position a lot more consistently than Arsenal, who tend to play within the margins a little bit more and rely on their normally solid defense. But yeah, look, listen, time will tell. Incredible game. Truly incredible game. I haven't watched it back for obvious reasons, but yeah, it's one that I may well watch back if and when in May Arsenal win the title.
Oh, right, okay. But before we go, we've obviously got to talk about what's happening at the bottom of the table as well. And maybe I suppose it's some light relief, but the Spurs game. I mean, obviously for me that was a massive result.
Yeah.
Uh, we sort of got 3 points. Forest won as well. So again, what's happening at the bottom? I still don't think we're safe. I still sort of think that we're. I did sort of say before the before the games that if we win and Spurs draw, I'll be pretty confident. But I've changed my mind. I'm still sort of thinking we need at least 4 more points. Now we have got a game this week, but that's against Bournemouth. There's no chance. I mean, I think Bournemouth are in rampant form. I mean, they're pretty good away, but at home they're invincible. And I just think it's a bridge too far for us. So I don't think we're going to get anything. We have a game against Burnley. That's going to be a massive game. I mean, I'm expecting the way that Burnley are. And what we're like at home, that certainly is going to be something that we're expecting 3 points. Maybe that perhaps just sort of gives us the edge. But Spurs were magnificent. I thought they were pretty good. I mean, maybe magnificent is probably a slight exaggeration, but they were very good. And I mean, when they scored 2-1, I mean, Xavi Simons, I think is a fantastic player. Great goal. Celebrated as if they won the Champions League. Everybody was on the pitch, and I don't know what impact that late and would it Giorgino Rutter, and he's actually done it twice. He scored against West Ham as well early on in the season, a late equaliser. So he's done it a couple of times where he's sort of helped us out inadvertently. So it could be a massive goal. I mean, I'm not sure what the impact is going to be sort of have on Spurs, but in terms of performance, if you just isolate that particular game, I thought Spurs were a complete transformation of the side that they've been previously, and they looked a side that I think will sort of win more games than not, but I'm not sure what impact it will have. So that's my take. What do you reckon?
I'm going to indulge you on Leeds a little bit more shortly, but just to cover your Spurs point, if you remember, I went for a nice walk with one of my good friends here not so long ago when they just appointed De Zerbi. This was before the Sunderland game, and I said to him at that time, and I think you and I disagreed. I said it's not that De Zerbi's the wrong appointment. Absolutely not. If this is game week 1, I think De Zerbi keeps Spurs up. I mean, I just do. Um, but De Zerbi likes to play expansive football, good football, risk football, which I think is fine if you've got the players. You know, you're not going to get relegated if you've got the players because you'll probably score enough goals and what have you. But I said it's such a short amount of games that I don't think that type of identity philosophy is the right, let's say, language or the right kind of words at this stage when confidence is shot. Uh, I think they're on their longest winless run, you for 91 years. I mean, that's not the time for right, guys. This is how we're going to play. This is
Hmm.
us, so to speak, and we're going to impose ourselves on the opposition. And you scoffed at it about Allardyce, and of course, I wasn't suggesting they go to Allardyce, but I sensed that they needed that type of batten down the hatches, attitude, spirit, and all of that. And that doesn't mean you can't have that even with the De Zerbi football, but I just sense that a bit of bad luck, an injury, a deflection, a red card, that's what's going to happen. And all of them have happened. You think about the Sunderland goal, deflection. You think about Romero out for the season. And you think about yesterday, or at least Saturday night, you when I watched the game, because it was a triple header bonanza opened up by yours, Leeds, truly. But the Spurs Brighton game was a wonderful game. But look at the goal that they conceded at the end. Confidence, anxiety, stress. It's a wonderful finish from Rutte. It looks easy,
Hmm.
but it's not.
Hmm.
Not at that time of the game. And you rightly mentioned he scored against West Ham, although I think it was slightly more fortuitous. I know there was an offside check and what have you. But this was a wonderful finish. And even then, Brighton were pouring it on, and you sensed that they could get another. And if they scored then, you'd have probably been able to write Spurs' obituary because in terms of what the fans would have been feeling if Brighton had got another. But no, look, I have them going down for the simple reason that I just think they acquitted themselves well, you, but Brighton still had plenty of that game, which Brighton do, to be fair. They're a very good outfit, very
Hmm.
watchable outfit. They're going to be in
Yeah.
many a games. I just sense, though, that Spurs, the heaviness as each passing game goes by. Forest turn it around yesterday when they were losing 1-0 for the longest time. Probably sticks the knife in a little bit that it's Morgan Gibbs White, a player they were very close to purchasing in the summer, that turns that
Hmm.
game around with a wonderful hat trick. Um, we got West Ham tonight away to Palace, which is going to be a pretty big game. Can you imagine if Leeds win, Forest wins, West Ham win, and Spurs have drawn? Games are running out of Europe, and
Hmm.
I just worry. You saw Simmons at the end, absolutely. I think it was cramping. He had some injuries. They were crestfallen. At the end, not to have picked up a win. And I just worry about the psyche right now of Spurs, their fans, and can they dig themselves out of this when they've not won a game for the longest time. So that'll be the worry. From a Leeds perspective, you just very quickly so you can indulge the viewers. Wonderful win, 2-0 up very quickly with a wonderful goal by James Justin and then Okafor finishing off a lovely move. And then obviously right at the very end, DCL with questionable penalty, but the game was pretty much done and
Mm.
dusted by then. 3-0 at home. We said that the crowd would be rocking, and it seems like the crowd took you to that victory as well. 3-0. You must be very happy with the players' performance, pretty consistent as they have been for most of the season. And you must be chuffed about Daniel Farke as well. He seems to be getting a consistent tune out of these players.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've given him credit where it's due. I've criticised him when I feel it's warranted. But we seem to have this sort of it's the modus operandi. We start on the front foot. I think recent games, and it seems to be almost like there's a sort of script that we sort of where we fly off the track, and then DCL gets a chance, he misses, and he did this again. It was, I think, within the first minute, Okafor, who's been absolutely magnificent, he's been brilliant. He's almost, I mean, I've sort of said that I'm not going to compare him to Rafinha, but he's our Rafinha at this moment in time where he's been outstanding. There are other players as well. When we had Rafinha, it was almost only sort of Rafinha who was doing that. But DCL again, it was it's again, it wasn't costly, but these are the things where you've got to be ruthless. But it was a really good performance because I did have a worry that after the high of the Man United victory, maybe perhaps this would be a potential banana skin because so the Wolves are all right, they're not bad, but they are bottom. So obviously they're bottom for a reason, but they have sort of picked up in recent sort of weeks. So it could have been a potential sort of sticky sort of moment for us, but we flew off the tracks. We were pressing. We were and that once we got that 2 goal lead. But again, it's you never know with Leeds. So whilst you sort of say that the DCL penalty was the game was gone, I wasn't in that position. I kept on thinking if we because again it was about 7 or 8 minutes added on. So we did need that third, even when there's about 5 minutes to go. I still sort of feel that a 2 goal lead is still sort of quite precarious. So delighted with the result. It puts us in a really strong position.
Yeah,
5 games to go, 8 points between us and
goal
Spurs.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and then 3-0. Yeah, I mean that certainly
Yeah.
helps as well. So we've got an advantage over Spurs. We've got a tricky. I mean, I say a tricky fixture. We've got an eye on impossible fixture against Bournemouth because we've got one eye on the cup semi-final at the weekend as well.
Mm,
So
mm.
it sort of puts a little bit of a spanner in the works. I mean, do you go all out? I hope they do. I hope
Yeah.
they go all out.
Yeah.
I'd rather uh, sort of not to sort of say don't focus on the cup, focus on this game and then focus on the cup. Focus on both games, but the first game is obviously very, very important. Uh, the game against Burnley is going to be massive. I mean, I almost sort of think that's going to be so that decides whether we stay up or we don't. And I would expect the way that Burnley are playing, the way we're playing, I would expect 3 points in that game. But fantastic result and tremendous work by Daniel Farke. I mean, I was reading a stat. The last 24 games in the Premier League, we've lost four, albeit we've had many draws. But that is outstanding for a team
Yep.
that's come up to the Premier League now. So I'm not sure what the stats for Sunderland are. I mean, their game was terrific as well, but I don't know what their stats are. But to only have 4 defeats in
Oh yeah.
24 games in the one of the sort of most competitive leagues in the world is incredible. Which is again more reasons why if to stay up would just be perfect because I think to have done all of the things that we have done and then to go down. But I'm still not sort of counting my chickens just yet. I still think there's a bit of work to do.
It's very typical of you to suggest, pull out a wonderful stat like that from 24 games onwards. Probably coincides with your defeat away to the Etihad when he famously switched from a back four to a back five. I think what you're hinting at is that if he had just done this formation from the beginning of the season, you could have been pushing Liverpool for those Champions League spots. I think is what you're trying to probably get at, which is very typical of you with Daniel Fark. Even when you're praising him, there's some sort of backhanded compliment in there somewhere. But look, just very quickly, you listen. I think you'll be fine. I suggested you. I think you've done the hard yards just by in watching it, you're competitive. I keep coming back to that word. So you're going to lose a few, which you have done. You're going to draw a few because you've not quite got the attacking prowess consistently, but defensively, they look fairly solid. I say fairly. It doesn't mean you're going to be the AC Milan of the 90s or what have you, or anything like that. And that's going to keep you in games. And when you're in games, that you can always win a few of them. Just slightly coming back to the first topic, Ayub. A lot of talk this season about set pieces, throw-ins, entertainment, where perhaps drilling the flair out of some of these players. I know that's a discussion that we want to have at some point more. I know your son has very strong views about this in terms of the eradication of, let's say, flair players because of system and what have you. I think even Gareth Bale hinted at it about Jack Grealish when he came on the overlap with the rest of the crew. Do you think a game like the one that we had yesterday at the Etihad, it's not so much to say that game saved the season somewhat, but do you think there is, in a sense, the season needed a game like that between the two best teams where all the eyes in the world are there thinking, oh, Arsenal going to turn up, City you knew were going to turn up, is it going to be a cagey affair? Anything, but do you think the season needed that type of game just to kind of, in a sense, remind ourselves why we fall in love with the sport in the first place?
I mean, I'm not sure whether the season needed that sort of game because I think it's been a terrific season. But again, every now and then you do want to sort of showcase the Premier League, and that was it. I kind of sort of think of a better sort of promotion for the Premier League than the game yesterday because it had everything. Because it did have. I mean, when obviously when Arsenal had set pieces, they were dangerous. But it had all the elements that is brilliant about the Premier League. The pressing by both teams were magnificent. In fact, I thought Arsenal's press at the start of the game was as good as any press that I've seen. They were absolutely chomping it, and that's one of the reasons why Havertz scored that goal. That press, I mean, it was magnificent, and there was plenty of quality play as well on shore. So it was everything that sort of is sort of wonderful about the Premier League, and it was fitting that you had the two best teams in the Premier League showcasing a wonderful exhibition of what top class football is all about. And it really had everything. And as I said, the icing on the cake for me was the battle between Gabriel and Haaland, because in between all the skillful players and all the fine sort of football that we were seeing as well, was sort of old school football, two warriors not given an inch, and it really was. It was wonderful to watch, I'm absolutely sure that both players enjoyed that battle, and it will be a game. I mean, I've recorded the game, so I'm going to watch the game again because it really is one of those games that you want to watch at least a few times. I'm not sure about you, but certainly for me, because it was a wonderful, wonderful advert, and whichever team sort of wins the Premier League is fully deserving because both those teams yesterday were worthy of being sort of champions of England. And I suppose with anything, there only can be one winner. But Arsenal, I was very pleased with their approach. I mean, that's one thing I've always been critical of Arteta. And the irony is, it's a game that he's lost. But I think this is
Yeah.
the way that he should have always approached playing on the front foot, take the game to the opposition.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is something to be said about perhaps the message it sends to your team if you send them out to primarily focus on defense. There could be subconscious kind of elements seeping into the players' minds that the manager doesn't quite trust us to go out and play and attack and what have you. So maybe there's a clarity of message when you say, look, we're going to press them. We're going to go one for one at the back. And that's laden with risk. But risk is what you have to take at this stage
Mm,
to win football games. Listen, I thought it was just a wonderful game of football. And you're right, Ayub, it pretty much had everything: drama, talking points, controversy, mistakes, emotion, managers. You saw Guardiola motioning to the
mm,
fourth official about Gabriel's red card. You saw him furiously sit down on his seat when he saw Donnarumma's mistake. Arteta at the end with Havertz's miss. This is what you want. You want the
mm.
managers to be invested, the players to be invested. You saw the players at the end, Declan Rice, crestfallen, Havertz, the look on his face, his opportunity to write himself into Arsenal folklore. Can you imagine?
Mm.
He's written himself into Chelsea folklore for that Champions League winning goal against Man City. He would have been Man City's kind of kryptonite once more if he had scored a
Mm.
brace at the Etihad to deliver Arsenal at least one hand maybe on the Premier League title. So in that sense, sport has always been, as I've always said, about narratives and storylines. And I think yesterday delivered a wonderful story. Unfortunately for Arsenal, they fell on the wrong side of it. But I'm like you, where if you're going to lose, you want to lose in that type of fashion where you can still take something out of it. You belonged. It wasn't as though there was a chasm between the two teams. I think that kind of defeat can be much more damaging mentally when you feel as though we're just second best here. I don't think that was the case yesterday. And on another day, bit more crisp and clinical up front in terms of just being sharper in terms of their forward play. They could have and should have maybe perhaps won that game or at least got their noses in front at a crucial time. So yeah, I think incredible game. Credit to Man City. I thought Silva, Rodri, some of the other performances were absolutely fantastic. Riley as well, who's doing incredibly
Yeah.
well. Should
Mm.
be England's starting left back. But yeah, incredible, incredible. And who knows, maybe this will go to the final day of the season, which would be an amazing finish to the Premier League season.
Yeah, yeah, here. Absolutely. Right. And on that note, we'll sort of call it a day. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've been very dignified, unlike me. I certainly wouldn't have exhibited the dignity that you've shown, but I am a lead supporter and I've much more pain than you've endured. Right. And on that note, thank you as always for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. And until next time, it might be an FA Cup special, a semi-final special. Some big teams in there. All right, so we might see you soon. See you later.